Upon a Burning Throne is an Indian-inspired fantasy epic and the first in a series, the Burnt Empire Saga. This one has been highly recommended to me by many people because I put out into the world, hey, recommend some Indian fantasy for me. And I like this recommendation for several reasons. Let's get into why. You guys clearly know me because this is a culture and world-heavy fantasy epic. I mean, talking big boy, just oh my lord level of world building, and it's written very beautifully. The cultural depth reached in this book is rarely seen for the genre. It's clearly a priority for the author and something he really wanted to bring into his pages, and I don't blame him because the payoff was exceptional. This is something that actually really feels like I'm reading something from another culture about another culture, which it absolutely is, so great. And the actual prose style lives up to what I really was looking for and expecting. And in addition to that, this is one of these books where there's a very love them, hate them cast of characters. There's people who are just flat out evil. And then there's those who are more like morally gray, and you have to like consider, do I really want to root for this person? They did some awful stuff, but they're on the right side. A lot of that. So that alone, just what I've talked about here, is going to be a pretty substantial appeal to a lot of people, right? People look for these big fantasy boys. A lot of comments I've seen have reflected my own desire to read things written by people who are from cultures I'm not a part of to give me a more like alternative, rich depth to the fantasy I'm reading. My issues, though, do happen to arise with a couple problems in this story, though, that really hindered my ability to enjoy it. First of all, despite the fact, and this is weird, this is going to sound strange, so let me fully explain here. Despite the fact that there is a beautiful world and a lot of time taken to all these things that have great payoff, I still feel like the author could have cut out 20 to 50 pages, and the pacing would have drastically benefited from doing so. Now, what do I mean by this? I'm not saying cut pages that are devoted to this world building. In fact, that's where it needs to stay. It's specifically with the narrative where there was a lot of things I feel like could have been condensed, actually just streamlined, and deliver the overall story more effectively as a result. It's not like characters are acting stupid or ignoring obvious like help or anything like that. There's just time taken, an elongation of scenes that from my own perspective, I feel like that could have been less. That would have been more enjoyable to a scene if you had written less. I mean, it comes down to that famous quote, right? Where if I had more time, I'd write less. To me, a great sign from a smart author isn't that he has these complex scene with 10 characters in a room all going at it. It's he knows which characters need to be there and he plays them off each other very well while not wasting the reader's time. So that's actually not going to bug some people, really. I don't think so, because there's a lot of people who just don't care about that, and they're happy to experience a scene and an author to indulge themselves as much as possible. And authorial indulgence is something that I'm probably gonna make like a whole video on in the future, but I'm becoming less forgiving of it. I'm starting to appreciate more and more books that effectively and concisely tell their story while trimming out fat. I mean, Joe Abercrombie, Fonda Lee, those are authors who do that extraordinarily well. If you're one who absolutely must have that, you could start having some real issues here. And I know it sounds contradictory for me to be like, I love a big fat world, spend as much time there as you want, but also be concise and trim the fat, because this is extraordinarily subjective, right? Like, I don't consider world building fat, especially if you're really taking your time to immerse me in it. I think that's absolutely part of the meat on the bone. Other people don't. So you really have to shape and form the criticism I'm putting forward here around your own personal preference. I just really want to stress that. I think a lot of people are going to pick up exactly what I'm talking about, though, when it comes to the introduction of the book. The introduction here is long-winded and indulgent, so if it really bothers you, expect a lot more of that, or if it's actually like, no, whatever, I'm fine with that, continue on. Now back to some praise. The action is very compelling, and the descriptions the author uses really are quite beautiful. Like, I actually found myself really enjoying the author's word choice, especially. He has a way of immersing you in his world through his vocabulary, and that is something that I really miss when it's not there. Unfortunately, my biggest shortcoming as a reviewer for this book obviously comes from the fact that I don't know the cultures and religions inspired behind this. I cannot speak to how well he realized them and brought them forth. I've seen some people complain online that he changed too much, or he downplayed characters or weakened certain other ones. I can't be a part of that conversation. I'm sorry. It's just a weakness for me as a reviewer coming in here, and I encourage anyone who's more knowledgeable in the matter and has read this book to speak in the comments down below, because I know a lot of my viewers are probably interested in that angle to it, and I would love some commentary on that level. The ending of the book, without getting into spoilers, really redeemed some of that long-windedness I was being bothered by. I think this had quite the banger ending. I just wish the author had maintained that similar level of pacing more throughout, because it felt very meandering up until the end to me, except for a few spikes of real, like, okay, we're getting into it. And then at the end, it just kind of really came down to what I kind of wish the author had shown me throughout the entire experience. The other big criticism I have here is, well, I have praised the characters in terms of they're a morally gray cast, there's really evil people, you know, you're gonna be caring about how they move like chess pieces against each other, but simultaneously, I was not emotionally invested in pretty much anybody, unfortunately. They just didn't hook me, even in like a love to hate them kind of sense. Some kind of disconnect I cannot place occurred where I just wasn't thrilled by that angle. I really wish I did, and I thought the princess especially was someone I was like, oh, I'm going to care. And there wasn't quite enough agency, I believe, maybe, I'm not sure, for me to really become like, oh, they have the potential to getting into like discussion of favorite characters. Like, no one really came to that level. There is a final angle to this. There's quite the intense conversation online going on about this book, about the possible sexist implications, and I will say there were definitely some scenes with female characters that made me uncomfortable, and I did not like the way the author handled them. There's also just a lack of agency, and I've seen an accusation for a minimizing certain female characters from the religion that's pulling from, and I can't again speak on that. I would be more curious, people who are more informed coming in and giving their thoughts on the matter. Overall though, Upon a Burning Throne is a mixed bag for me. It had so many angles I deeply enjoyed. In terms of worlds I've read this year, there are few that have intrigued me and wanted to pull me in more than Upon a Burning Throne. There's just the unfortunate asterisk to that where I didn't care much about the characters and I thought the narrative was a little too slow for me. Overall though, in terms of enjoyment, I'm feeling a 5 out of 10. It's about average for me when you even it all out, but it's definitely more polarizing. This falls into the your mileage may vary category. There are people who are going to love this, there are people who are going to hate it, and that's why you're going to see on Goodreads reviews that are just across the spectrum here. But let me know what you thought of Upon a Burning Throne in the comments down below. Have I sold you on it, or are you more just curious, you're unsure? Let me know. Whenever I have a more medium review like this, it's interesting to see which comments are like, yes, 100% to no, not at all. People will pick up on what they really want to take away and run with it from there, and that's what I always encourage. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.